Hey guys, what's up? It's been a very busy, wonderful day. We had Ben's class out here for a field trip today. Second grade. They go to a really tiny school, and his second grade class is 11 kids. It's the whole second grade. And anyway, they came out here and toured the farm, got to see milking, and we got to plant some stuff. So I'm still kind of got it set up here for them, but I'm gonna jump in to what I needed to do, and I'll tidy all of this up later. So yesterday I actually planted quite a bit out here. We're gonna have a lot of rain coming in, like in the night tonight, and so I'm hoping to get a lot of stuff planted, because when things can get like a good soaking rain after they've been planted, it just seems to give them like a real good chance of good germination and nice transplanting without as much shock. But some of the things that I put in here definitely are shocking. So the actual transplants are fine. I did find some tomato starts because mine have been so puny. I'm still working on mine, but I bought some tomatoes and peppers at a local place that had stuff. It's, for those of you who are local, it's called Seven Oaks Plant Shop. It's in Columbia. They had lots of heirlooms, so these are all heirloom varieties. Now, I pulled up, sunflowers don't love to be transplanted. That's what these are. I also pulled up some nasturtiums. All of these were things that had volunteered over in my high tunnel and in places I didn't want them, so I went ahead and pulled them out because I was going to pull them out anyway. Tried to stick them in here. They're shocking pretty hard, but we'll see if they come back. So I planted my cucamelons here. My hose doesn't reach very far. I need to hook up the other hose. Obviously, I'll have to water those in. And here I planted Kajari melons. I put this trellis in where the beans were, so once these come up, I'm probably going to move them down some into some of these other spaces so that the Kajari melons can grow. Oh well, this is what happens when you don't have a solid plan. And down on this trellis I planted Armenian white cucumbers. I have a few more arch trellises here that I need to plant. I'm going to try to get the seeds in those today before the rain comes. And I'm actually planning on starting some more seeds, and I'll tell you why. Alright, I had a little house plant in this. This was brought to me by a friend that came to visit when we had an Abundance Plus thing. She said she brought me a houseplant in it, which I actually moved it into a larger pot. It was a little friendship plant with the little discs, and they reproduce a lot. So I moved it up. I need to put something in this. I just thought it was really cute. I'd like to have it sitting out here. Finally getting some rose blooms, but I'm really enjoying my irises on this side. I've been taking pictures of each iris. I'm up to 14 different kinds that have bloomed. Unique. Oh, I don't have a picture of this one yet. That's number 15. Isn't that pretty? I actually think this dusty pink is my favorite one right now. So many of you sent me irises when we moved here, and last year they didn't all bloom. I had planted a lot of them in pots and then moved them out, and I didn't get blooms off of a lot of them. So it's like Christmas now. I'm having this discovery from gifts that were sent almost 2 years ago. Isn't that so cool? Plants are cool like that, and garden friends are very cool like that. Alright, in here, it's going to be a little loud. I can't turn the fans off. It's way too hot for the fans to be off. I just wanted to show you what a massive difference the feeding and fertilizing of these seedlings has made. Like over here, see my peppers? They're like way darker, significantly larger, all over. The seedlings have grown a lot, so I'm very relieved. So if you haven't been following with me, I've been sharing that my seedlings were just very stunted. And this is the first time that this has ever happened to me like this. I've never had this much of an issue with starting seeds. I think it was kind of a perfect storm of situation. Y'all. Don't know a happier dog than my dog. He's living his best life over here. I think that there were several things that went into my seedlings being stunted. One, and I'm going to recap these things. If you've been watching all the vlogs, you've heard me say this stuff as I've kind of troubleshooted as I've gone. We had some really up and down weather this spring. Like it got really, really warm and then really, really cool. And there was one point, there were a couple nights that it dropped below 40 degrees in my greenhouse. So that's 4 Celsius. So, you know, that's fairly close to freezing, and peppers and tomatoes and stuff don't really like getting that cold. Now, that should not have stunted them to the level that they were stunted. It might have, it definitely didn't help them grow fast, but it shouldn't have like zapped them completely. The other thing was we had shade cloth on here, which it gets really, really hot in here. And the shade cloth is absolutely imperative if anybody wants to come in this space at all, or if you want to keep anything alive in this space at all over the summer, or else it'll be like just an oven. It's insane how hot it gets. So we had the shade cloth on from last summer. We hadn't taken it off. That was definitely making a big difference. Plants need a lot of light, especially in the beginning to get started, and when you think you're cutting the UV by half, obviously that's going to stunt them. I just didn't realize how badly it was stunting them. Also, I start my seeds with potting mix. I have 4 years. I actually still like the potting mix that I use. You've seen the bags, they're all over. I buy it by the pallet load. It's called Bacto. I have no affiliation with them. I think they make a really good solid product. It's organic, and I've never had any issue. And I don't have any, I still stand by Bacto. However, I will probably do something a little different in the future, and I think it's not necessarily the brand, but COVID, in case you didn't know, I know many of you are here because of COVID. COVID kind of changed the gardening world and the homesteading world in a really big way, because for the first time, a lot of people were like, oh dang, I should probably grow some food. Or they were just like, I have a lot of time on my hands, maybe I'll get into gardening. Massive influx into gardening and homesteading during that time. Actually on YouTube in 2020, the gardening and homesteading niche actually surpassed the beauty niche for the first time ever in views and growth. So massive growth in the homesteading world. With that being said, a lot of the products that were a certain quality prior to COVID, they changed a lot. And so I have noticed with a lot of bagged soils, bought composts, anything like that, they're not as broke down now as they used to be, and I think that maybe a lot of these suppliers are trying to produce way more to meet the demand. And in the nature of things like compost or potting soils, I mean, it takes a certain amount of time to break down. Like, you can't make your way around that. And I have noticed last year and this year that the potting mix that I've been using for years and years was a lot more barky. You've heard me say that if you have been listening. So like, here's a seedling, lots of bigger pieces of wood. So here's the deal with stuff like big pieces of wood. Anytime you have a lot of big pieces of wood mixed into any soil, it's going to pull a lot of nitrogen. And it's going to make it where your plants can't get the nitrogen that they need. Was not ideal for seed starting this year. Now what you could do if you buy a bag of potting soil to start seeds, I still like starting seeds in potting soil. What you can do is like get some sort of mesh, like a window screen would work really well. You could make something. We've made a sifter, that's the word I'm looking for, out of like some hardware mesh, and basically like sift that soil through that mesh to get all the bigger pieces of wood out. That probably would have been ideal, and I might not be dealing with such an issue now if I had done that. Now, do I think it's the soil's fault? No. We had shade cloth on, the up and down weather. I think it was kind of a perfect storm, but we took the shade cloth off about a week and a half ago. That definitely started some growth, and I started feeding my plants with a very, very diluted fertilizer. And any sort of fertilizer, you know, whatever it is you do, read the label and do not decide that it would be better for your plants to give them extra. It would not be better for your plants. You definitely want to follow the label. Right now, I'm diluting like half of a tablespoon in a whole gallon of water, something like that, or half. It's very little. It's like a cap full, but I'm only doing half. That way I can feed them more frequently. One thing I am also doing to make sure that they are actually soaking up that fertilizer, because I am dealing with some malnutrition of my seedling, which I was really able to spot in some discoloration in my seedlings. Now, some purpling is normal, especially in varieties that have a lot of anthocyanin. So like, this is Blue Beauty. These tomatoes are literally dark blue. Like, there's gonna be some purpling in these stems and leaves, but if it's very excessive, especially in varieties that are not high in anthocyanins, you know you've got an issue. So if you're seeing a lot of purpling, let's see, I think purpling is phosphorus deficiency. If you're seeing a lot of yellowing, that's nitrogen deficiency. These over here were a really good example of nitrogen deficiency. Let me see. What you can see, the new leaves are starting to be more green, but like what was like super yellow. My peppers were like almost like a fluorescent yellow. They're starting to green up some now, but they're still not as green as I would like for them to be. We'll get there. But I'm no longer letting any water sit in the bottom of these trays. With healthy plants and healthy soil, water sitting in the bottom of those trays when it's super hot would not be a problem at all. But because my plants are deficient, them sitting in soil that's bogged down could potentially make it more difficult for them to take up the nutrients that they need. So we're actually letting the soil dry out a little bit. Not like to the point that I'm actually concerned that the plants are gonna shrivel up or struggle. It's not that at all. The soil's still moist. The soil is not dry, but it's not sitting in water. And that way when I come in and I'm watering with that very diluted liquid fertilizer, the plants are actually able to take that up, and it's not getting washed out and evaporating in the greenhouse. So that's what I'm doing. I would say probably in another week or two, these things are gonna look really good. But one thing I am gonna do is I'm actually gonna start some more dwarf tomato seeds. So here are my dwarf tomato seedlings. Again, they're looking way better than they were. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of improvement. They're dwarf varieties. They're supposed to be very compact and small. But I'm gonna go ahead and start some more of these seedlings. I just wanna make sure I have enough to fill my green stalks with. And some of these are so stunted that I'm not 100% sure they're gonna come back. I started these, I mean, it's been at least like 6 or 7 weeks ago. So I've got a tray here ready. And I'm hoping that with having that extra tray, I will have enough to fill my green stalks fully, because I wanted them both just completely full of dwarf tomatoes. So I've been saying dwarfs. These are actually micro dwarfs. So micro dwarfs are types of tomatoes that are only 12 inches, like fully grown. What I have that make me feel like they're terribly stunted is the fact that like they have hardly any leaves, and like some of the ones that I already planted out of my green stalk, that was before I had started doing all of the things and fertilizing, and I was trying to maybe bring them back by planting them, and I just don't know that they're going to come back. So I'm just trying to get some extras, because I have this image of the green stalk like slam full of these tiny tomato plants. Once I get an idea in my mind of how I want something to go like that, I want to absolutely do everything that I can to make it possible. Alright, so I have that tray of seedlings sown. Here are some zinnias. See, this is my thing that made me think it's really not the soil. The soil is fine. I think it probably didn't help that it was so barky, but I don't think it really stunted it, because like look at these zinnias. I just planted these, what, like 2 weeks ago, but since they've had the sun, I think that was the biggest stunter. And then I've also given them some plant food, but they did not have to endure that cold. I think we've got the issue solved, but by fixing those things. But anyway, this is sitting here because I've started to harden this tray off because I want to go plant them down in the other garden. All right. Look at that. Said he wanted to be on YouTube. Look. Oh man, that smells right. I was just chatting with the driver. He's super nice. People always have a lot of questions when they come out here. You know, they pull in and they're like, what are you doing? Growing food. All right, let's head down here to the in-ground garden. Almost got distracted starting those seeds in there. I almost started thinking about all the other things I could pot up and start, but that's rainy day work. Today is not a rainy day. Tomorrow is going to be a rainy day, so I need to put seeds in the ground. So we've been running the sprinkler right here on this area. I've got some Steve sunflowers popping up here, looking happy, making me happy. Over here I've got squashes, nasturtiums, basils. These 2 beds are full, and since I'm already watering these beds because of all of these seedlings, it only makes sense to go ahead and get some more seeds in the ground. But I also want to just go ahead and try to plant out as much of this garden as I can. Another thing I have on my to-do list is to plant this high tunnel. It's ready to go, but I'm not going to do that today, because when your to-do list is long and you have spaces like this, these are rainy day spaces. So this time of year where it could just randomly rain for a whole afternoon, which is great, we want that. I want to use that. So today I'm planting seeds so that I can benefit from that rain tomorrow, and I'm saving these workspaces until for the times that I can't be out here. Y'all, I can already tell you I'm gonna struggle in this garden. All right, I just planted this bed with Kalima bush beans. They're one of my favorites. They're really thin and tender. I recently stated in a video that I always plant dragon tongue bush beans, although they're not my favorite. And a lot of people are like, what is your favorite? I prefer like really thin green beans that are stringless and just tender. I'm not a big fan of like the big, thick, chunky ones. I know some people like those, like the Roma beans. You know, they're real wide. Another way to cook green beans is to put like some sort of oil in a pan, a little bit of like freshly chopped garlic, some herbs, and then put the beans in there and like flash fry them, like just super fast saute. And then as soon as they soften up, then just like salt and pepper, maybe like a splash of lemon juice or vinegar, and then to brighten it up. And I could eat that all summer. I feel like with those broad, thicker beans, you kind of have to cook them longer to get them to soften up, and it's not my favorite. Still grow them, still use them, but my favorite is these. And I like the Kalimas for that. But I was going to tell you about my struggle. I just started to poke holes here because I was going to put the beans in this bed. And there are so many zinnias popping up in this bed. There's one. They're all over. Down at the end of that bed, there's a whole bunch of little celosia sprouts. This is all reseeded. So last year there was a bunch of zinnias right here. And they're coming back, which... y'all, I have such a hard time ending a volunteer plant. But I can't just... I bet that if I just pulled this off and let it grow, that there would be so... this would just be so full of stuff. I'm walking around now, because we've had the tarp off for what, like a little over a week. And I'm walking around now and there are just like flower seedlings everywhere. There's zinnias everywhere, which is not surprising because I had a bunch of flowers that had gone to seed. I put the chickens in here, so naturally they just came and scratched it all in. I bet there will be tomato seedlings popping up over here. Okra is gonna be wild. There's gonna be a lot of food in here. And since I'm actually planting things, I'm gonna have to pull stuff out. Oh, I'm getting distracted, but look at my banana plants. They are really coming up. I'm actually going to separate some of those out. A friend of mine wanted some of them. Alright, I have one more thing to tell you guys, and then I'm actually going to end this video because I'm in a particularly distractible mood today. You may have noticed. My routine is really off doing the field trip, which was great and totally worth it. But I do have some things I have to get done today before Jeremiah and I have Harlow tonight on our nanny and papa duties. But Honey Girl, the calf, she's not a calf anymore. She is Hope's calf, her heifer calf that came with her. So our first cow came with Honey, her daughter, and Honey had her first calf today. So that kind of shows you how long we've been here. And they're out there on, look at this beautiful day, isn't it beautiful? So Honey's the one on the far right. She had a big old bull calf. He's laying down. I'll show them to you guys soon. See, I told you I was gonna get off and end the video, and then here I am. It's 25 minutes later and I'm back. I'm gonna show you one more thing and then I'll really say goodbye. So we just took that compost we got and I piled up some around this pepper plant, and I piled up some around a couple of bean plants here. The place I got this compost from, so far I've gotten multiple loads of good stuff from that haven't had any issues, but I just want to make sure before I spread it all over my whole garden that there's not any more chances of contaminants like I dealt with last year with some purchased compost. And beans are incredibly sensitive to aminopyralids, and so by putting this around where I have a couple of beans already sprouting and around this pepper, these should show me pretty quick if I have an issue. And if these still look good in another week and there's no like warping or shriveling up or anything like that, then we'll go ahead and mulch the garden with that compost. And basically we'll do just like this with it. You know, it's still got a little bit of breaking down to do, but it's really good stuff. It's got a lot of mushroom mycelium in it, and we'll just spread out about an inch or two layer all over around the plants. Where we haven't planted, we'll just lay it down and then plant, you know, dig it, push it to the side and plant down, and then we'll mulch with our unsprayed straw on top of that. I do very thick mulch in my garden because I live where it's very hot, and so it's really important for moisture retention to make sure that your soil is covered. Now right now this is bare because things are just sprouting, but I'll have this covered again another week. All right, now I'm really gonna go get to work. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I bless you. Until next time.